without giving him the chance to look around. For security's sake, he had also chosen to teleport to a point over 2 kilometers away from Shaltir. While he had already checked the surroundings with magic, there was no way to completely guarantee that the world-class item user who had mind-controlled Shaltir was not around. However, in the end all he could do was try not to worry unnecessarily. As Ains rounded his shoulders in relief, he looked behind, to the 2 people that were following him. "Let's split up here," he told Aura and Mare. They were the only 2 people whom Ains had permitted to walk with him before the impending battle. He had already ordered those subordinates who had tasks outside back to Nazarick. Apart from Aura and Mare, only Sabas and Solution were still at large. The main reason he had chosen them was to play on his enemy's emotional weakness. Unlike Demiurge and Cocytus, who were heteromorphs, Aura and Mare were humanoids. Perhaps their foe would be unwilling to slay such adorable humanoid children. Of course, perhaps the enemy might really be that ruthless. Even so, he wanted to have people around in case something happened. Although it might not help at all. Ains looked at the 2 mismatched gauntlets on Mare's hands. The right one was fashioned in the shape of an angel's sleek hand and glowed with silver light, but the left one resembled a demon's claw, covered in hooks and spikes. The crimson radiance of magma leaked through the fissures on its surface. Then, he turned to Aura, and at the large scroll behind her. "If you are outnumbered, retreat to Nazarick immediately." "Understood." Aura nodded, her face stiff. Mare rushed to lower his head as well. "Listen well, you must retreat. This is also part of my plans. In addition, the items I have given you are the treasures of Nazarick. You cannot allow them to be taken, no matter what. In some ways, they can be considered more valuable than you are. Do you understand?" Ains exhorted. Ains felt uneasy over Aura's somewhat reluctant response. If she disobeyed his orders due to her loyalty, it might lead to a fatal problem. After hearing their replies, one energetic, one shy and retiring, a question arose in Ains' heart. In truth, which do I value more? He did not want to use a world-class item to save Shaltir. From that point of view, one could say that he valued the items more. However, the reason for not using the world-class items was the same as what he had told Albedo in the treasury. They were aces in the hole, which could turn any defeat into a victory. It was one thing if there was no other way to save Shaltir, but since there was still another possibility, it would be wiser not to use them yet. Leaving these reasons aside, which was more important? The NPCs, who had been painstakingly crafted by his companions and who were now sapient and loyal beings, or the world-class items, which symbolized the adventures which had raised the standing of Ains down within the game Yggdrasil. Though Ains thought deeply about the matter, the fact that he could not reach an answer troubled him. Perhaps he might have been able to conclusively state his answer before coming to this world, but now, he could not. The results of his guildmates' painstaking and intricate labors were these NPCs, who had the ability to think and feel. Because I'm planning to kill this NPC, who's like a child. I'm planning to kill Peroroncino's daughter. Frustration filled Ains' heart. One could also call it a form of guilt. However, Ains' keen gaze zeroed in on Shaltir's potential location. It's the only way to break the control of a world-class item. He had spoken those words to convince himself. After seeing the looks in Aura and Mare's eyes, Ains felt that it was not good to worry them further, and changed the subject. Then, work together with them. Keep an eye on the surroundings. Ains pointed to the 4 huge clumps of meat that were leading the way for them. They were 2 meters wide and their bodies were pink. However, these monsters had countless cloudy white eyes. It looked as though the eyes from all manner of corpses had been haphazardly stitched together. These were undead beings made with the create high-tier undead skill, eyeball corpses. Ains had used his entire day's worth of that skill's uses to make these eyeball corpses, because they were the nemesis of stealthy beings, whether they used magic or skills to do so. Their cloudy eyes were not ornamental, but possessed outstanding perception. Even the specialized ranger aura could not match them. Although their effective combat level was low, their emphasis was on detection ability, and not fighting power, so his aim was to have them support Aura for targeting duties. Understood. However, will they obey my orders? There will be no problems in that respect. I guarantee it. Also, you should link your minds with magic. That way, you can act as a command center and patrol the area in peace. Okay? Although it would be faster for me to go myself, we don't know where those guys are. Got it. Then, after Mare uses his stealth-enhancing magic, we'll take these guys and lay low. That sounds fine. I'll leave that to you. Ains quietly smiled, though it could not be seen, as his face could not move. Diamond suit, diamond suit, diamond suit. The last person to enter the room was Demiurge, who threw himself down on an empty seat. It clearly illustrated his mood, given that he would never act so impolitely under normal circumstances. Well, is there an explanation for this? Demiurge narrowed his eyes as he directed that intense question to Albedo, seated opposite him at the table. Why did you agree to this? His tone was even, but that was simply a thin veil draped over the surface. Everyone could feel the barbs in his words. When a typically calm person displayed great emotion, the distance between his usual behavior and the abnormality made that emotion seem even more intense to others. However, this was not quite accurate, because Demiurge was very worked up, and none of his comrades had seen such agitation from him before. However, in the face of this questioning, filled with hostility, or even killing intent, Albedo remained unmoved. This was Ain-sama's decision. How can we subordinates oppose? Why? The question interdicted Albedo's reply with the finality of a guillotine's blade. Why? When Ain-sama left for the human city, Erantal, you were the one who insisted on having a guardian follow him. Why did you agree to this now? You should be worried about Ain-sama's safety now, as you were then. Albedo inclined her head in response, and Demiurge's face visibly contorted. Then, I'll ask you again. Why did you permit this? His anger seemed to shake the room. This intensity was completely unlike the Demiurge whom they were familiar with. Cocytus slowly turned his head, looking at the two people staring each other down. There was worry in his eyes. Also, you should have known that Ain-sama was lying, right? Demiurge asked, his voice low and angry. After Albedo nodded again, Cocytus exhaled sharply. Both of them knew that this clear, high-pitched sound was one which Cocytus made when he was confused. Earlier. You said that Ain-sama told you his reasons for leaving alone. But do you not find it strange? From Ain-sama's point of view, a sequential attack would be safer. We could attack ion waves and wear down Shaltier's HP and MP. You're right, Cocytus. There is no way Ain-sama would not be able to think of a strategy that we could easily come up with. In other words, Ain-sama was deliberately lying to hide something else. What reason? Island. That? I have no idea, which is why I'm asking. Since you did not know the reason, why did you let Ain-sama go alone? It's because Ain-sama now is a completely different person from how he was several days ago. Demiurge opened his narrowed eyes slightly to show that he was confused by this, as though asking Albedo to continue her explanation. At that time, Ain-sama did not seem like a man, but instead, how shall I put it, yes, this might sound disrespectful, but at that time, he looked just like a child who was trying to run away. I did not feel that at all. Were you mistaken, perhaps? Demiurge shifted his gaze to the crystal monitor within the room. Its surface displayed the form of his master walking deeper into the forest. Really now? I don't think I would be mistaken about the look on the face of the man I love. Albedo was looking at the crystal monitor as well, with the look of a love-struck maiden on her face. However, that expression only angered the already frustrated demiurge. Then what? What about this expression? Right now, Ain-sama has a look of great conviction on his face. As a woman, perhaps it is disloyal to think in this way, but when I know that my beloved master intends to see through his conviction to the end, I will not say anything more. Also, Ain-sama has promised me that he will return to this place once more. Once he saw that Albedo was not going to continue, the visibly displeased demiurge cut loose. This is naive. This is irrational. You're just making decisions based on your feelings. Ain-sama is the final supreme being who remained here. Once we know his life is in danger, it is our duty to eliminate that danger. Even if we are rebuked for it, even if we should perish by doing so, we should still take action, should we not? There was a thumping sound as Demiurge sprang up. Where are you going? Demiurge's voice was quite calm as he turned to leave. Need you ask? Obviously it is to send my minions. Demiurge sensed something running toward him and turned to look. He saw Cocytus, brandishing a divine class weapon. I see. So the reason you summoned me here and ordered me to this place was for this, was it not, Albedo? Indeed, Demiurge. The 7th floor is already locked down in the names of myself and Ain-sama, and we have control of all the vassals. Need I tell you whose orders they will obey? Foolishness. How will you take responsibility if Ain-sama perishes? Ain-sama is the last remaining entity to whom we can pledge our loyalty. Ain-sama will return. How can you be so sure of that? Demiurge's eyes went wide, but there were no eyeballs within his eye sockets. Instead, he had gemstones, which lacked pupils or sclera, but which were intricately cut with countless sparkling facets. Believe in your master. This is our purpose, as those who were created by them. Demiurge's mouth had been opening and closing all this time, but now he firmly shut it. This was because he felt, she might be right. The NPCs of Nazarick were absolutely loyal to the 41 supreme beings, but the way in which they expressed their devotion varied from person to person. Thus, it was natural that Demiurge and Albedo might have different opinions on how to show their loyalty. However, Albedo's idea of loyalty rocked Demiurge to the core. Even so, he was still worried, and because the uneasiness in his heart had not vanished, he had given voice to those words. If Ain-sama vanishes like the other supreme beings, who shall we be loyal to? We were created to be loyal to them, but once we lose that value, what reason is there for us to exist? As though to cover up his own emotions, Demiurge forcefully sat himself back on the chair, completely unlike how he usually was. If anything happens to Ain-sama, you will resign your post of guardian overseer. Demiurge. You dare ask Albedo to resign the position of guardian overseer, which the supreme beings gave her? This island treachery. Albedo's response to the astonished Cocytus was a simple smile. That will be fine. However, Demiurge, if Ain-sama returns safely, you will immediately yield to me if a similar situation occurs. Of course. Then, Cocytus, what do you think of Ain-sama's odds? Cocytus calmly informed the two of them of his opinion, 3, 2, 7. With Ain-sama being 3. Demiurge's shoulders quaked. He could not pretend he had not heard the inauspicious words which Cocytus, the mightiest warrior present, had just spoken. However, Albedo was different. As she heard that pronouncement, she continued smiling, her face brimming with supreme confidence. Is that so? Then, let us watch as Ain-sama turns those odds into a victory. Diamond suit, diamond suit, diamond suit. After parting ways with the two of them, Ains trod a path toward Shaltir's location. The reason why he could discern the directions of north, south, east, and west and head straight for Shaltir was thanks to his skills. After passing through the trees, he saw Shaltir. She looked completely different from how she had before, like a doll, and it made Ains feel sad. At the same time, he was angry at himself, but he was far angrier at the user of that world-class item. Damn it. He did not curse loudly, but the intensity of those words implied an anger so powerful that even Ains could not fully suppress it. This was despite being one of the undead, who were resistant to such surges of emotion. I decided to spread the name of Ains Ulgaun in order to find my friends. That was the method I selected. Thus, I took action in a low-key manner to avoid pointless conflicts. And yet, why did this happen? Who were they? Who did they belong to? What did they want? Why had they used a world-class item on Shaltir? No matter who they are, once I learn about them from Shaltir, I'll finish them off for sure. Ains' unmoving skull was seemingly twisted by the black, bubbling hatred and murderous intent within him. You will deeply regret your foolishness. If it is a fight with Ains Ulgaun you want, then a fight you shall have. After giving voice to the anger in his heart, Ains' frustration slowly ebbed away. The true battle would begin now, and he had to calm down in order to face it. I'm such a fool. I know there's better ways to do this. Ains cracked a self-deprecating grin. Is this guilt? Or is it because I didn't dare face it? I just wanted to run away. Shaltir was the strongest of the guardians, but she was not that much stronger. If the other guardians attacked in waves, victory would be assured. Yet, there was one reason why Ains had not chosen that method. It was because he did not want to see his beloved children killing each other before his eyes. If she had betrayed Ains Ulgaun of her own free will, Ains would have taken that treachery in stride and destroyed her with everything at his disposal. If that was the NPC's will, then as the ruler of Nazarick, he was obliged to deal with it sternly. If she had betrayed him because she had been programmed to do so, he would find the best way to compromise with her. However, Shaltir's situation now was different from all those scenarios. She was under mind control, and the one at fault was Ains, who had not anticipated such a situation. Thus, he was the only one responsible for this. He wanted to finish it with his own hands. Ains removed one of his rings. It was a cash item that allowed for resurrection at hardly any cost. Removing this ring symbolized Ains' determination to throw his hat over the fence, because if he could return to life, he would subconsciously relax. This was not a concession, but conviction. With that feeling in his heart, Ains looked to the sky. The enemy hasn't made a move yet. Up till now, the only thing I can sense are the divination spells from Nazarick. Am I being watched? Normally, Ains would have many defensive spells layered on himself. The anti-divination countermeasure he used in Karn village was one of them. In Yggdrasil, friendly fire was disabled, so his friends could cast divinations on Ains as normal. However, things were different in this world. If Albedo and the others wanted to observe Ains, Ains would automatically respond with a magical counterattack. If that happened, the counterattack would clash with Nazarick's defensive network. If he was not careful, Ains might be hit by the network's own counterattack and take unnecessary damage. This was why Ains had disabled the offensive spells linked into his countermeasures and only used the one which told him the origin of any divination spells. What he learned from them was that nobody was observing him other than Nazarick. Ains tilted his head, unable to make sense of things. Could it be that Shaltir was actually abandoned here by accident? And, I wonder if Albedo saw through my lie? Good grief. Although, don't you think this feels like a wager, Shaltir? Of course, there was no reply from the blank-faced Shaltir. Ains looked to Shaltir. He ran a simulated battle through his head, and felt like fleeing. While he had resolved himself just now, just standing here filled him with incredible mental stress. Though he was prepared to sacrifice himself, no, it was precisely because he was prepared to die that the remnants of Suzuki Satoru, the weak-spirited human, was afraid. What came next would be a battle to the death. This was not a fight in a game like Yggdrasil, this was a true deathmatch. This was unlike his battles with Nigan and Clementine after he had come to this world, where he had fought more like trampled people that he vastly overpowered. This time, the outcome was in doubt, and he was starting from incredibly unfavorable conditions. If he were not undead, and if I were not the leader of the great underground tomb of Nazareth, and the representative of the guild, I might not even be able to clench my fists. Ains chuckled to himself, as though to exorcise all his negative emotions. The fear of death had vanished, and he was no longer uncertain over the possibility of being defeated. The proud memories of his glorious past gave Ains strength. I am Ains Ulgaun. How could this name ever be defeated? He was the owner of the great underground tomb of Nazareth. He would prove that his title was not for show. Ains' eyes were keen as they studied the defenseless Shaltir. Then let's start. Ains shouted as he cast his spell. He carefully selected a spell from his massive repertoire of magic, and activated a 10th tier spell. Body of Effulgent Barrel. Ains' skeletal body glowed green, and then ha ha ha. He laughed, his eyes never leaving Shaltir as he cast his spell. He laughed because of this unexpected outcome, and also because he had won a big bet. Exactly as I had expected. As long as they don't consider my actions to be a clear sign of hostility, the NPCs won't even enter combat status. It's just like how it was in the game. These actions were identical to those of mind-controlled monsters in Yggdrasil. The fact that the game's logic could be used here slightly improved the massive disadvantage he faced. That being the case, I'm sorry about this, Shaltir, but I'll have to ask you to stay that way before the battle starts. Ains continued casting various spells. Fly, Bless of Magic Caster, Infinity Wall, Magic Ward Holy, Life Essence, Greater Full Potential, Freedom, False Data Life, See-Through, Paranormal Intuition, Greater Resistance, Mantle of Chaos, Indomitability, Sensor Boost, Greater Luck, Magic Boost, Draconic Power, Greater Hardening, Heavenly Aura, Absorption, Penetrate Up, Greater Magic Shield, Mana Essence, Triplet Maximize Magic Explode Mine, Triplet Magic Greater Magic Seal, Triplet Maximize Boosted Magic Arrow. This seemingly endless stream of spells surrounded Ains' body. Then here I come. Those words, spoken after he had finished his preparations, were directed at Shaltir and himself. The first thing Ains did was to use one of the ultimate moves of magic, those spells which surpassed the 10th tier of magic. These spells were known as super tier magic. Diamond Suit, Diamond Suit, Diamond Suit. From the perspective of the tiers of magic, spells of this level could be considered spells, and not spells at the same time. To begin with, they did not consume MP, but instead they could only be used a limited number of times per day. When one first learned them, they could only be used once per day. Every 10 levels after level 70, however, one could use them an additional time per day. One could learn a single super tier spell per level. Rather than call them magic, they might be better described as skills. In other words, the average player could only use 4 super tier spells per day at level 100. One might ask at this point, why not consecutively cast super tier spells to defeat Shaltir? Indeed, the destructive power of super tier magic was unrivaled, dwarfing even that of 10th tier spells. If one could cast super tier spells one after the other, even the damage alone would only be survivable by a vanishingly small fraction of level 100 players. Shaltir was not among that number, so that would definitely defeat her. However, he could not do that. The reason was because super tier magic spells could not be cast one after the other. To begin with, each super tier spell needed a certain amount of casting time. Cache items could remove that casting time, but another penalty prevented the repeated casting of super tier spells. Once any member of a team cast a super tier spell, every member would be penalized by being unable to cast such spells for a certain period of time, in other words, a cooldown period. This restriction was put in place to prevent guild wars from being decided by who could vomit out the most super tier spells. In addition, this cooldown period could not be eliminated by any skill or cache item. Thus, when PvPing, the party which cast a super tier spell first was often considered an idiot. After all, defeat was likely when one expended a trump card, without properly understanding one's foe. The fact was that there were very few PvP battles, where the victors were the first to cast super tier spells. Diamond suit, diamond suit, diamond suit. Yet Ain's first move was to cast such a spell. There was no frustration or confusion on his face. A calm, steady light glowed within his eye sockets. A gigantic dome-shaped magic circle appeared around Ain's, extending about 10 meters away from him. The magic circle shone a brilliant white, and translucent diagrams of characters and symbols appeared. These images changed ceaselessly, with kaleidoscopic speed, differing from second to second. Ain's could have used a cache item to instantly cast the super tier spell, but he did not do so. Instead, his eyes moved from Shaltir to his surroundings. No ambushers. Or are they watching from afar? This should be the best time to attack, right? Magic casters who were preparing a super tier spell suffered from lowered defenses. In addition, the super tier spell would self-terminate if the caster took a certain amount of damage. Thus, the basics of casting super tier spells included protecting the caster with several friends. In other words, now was the best time to attack Ain's, who was alone. However, there was no change in his surroundings. Was I being paranoid? Ain's laughed, and then shrugged. It was just a hunch, but Ain's was quite sure that Shaltir had not been staked out as bait, but simply abandoned here. What is all this, anyway? I don't have the eyes of God, so I can't see through everything. If I did, perhaps things might not have ended up like this. Ain's rotated his shoulders in an exaggerated way as he muttered to himself. He could not move around freely while casting a super tier spell. All he could do was stand there like a dummy and wait for time to pass. In order to effectively make use of his time, Ain's pulled out a thin strip of curved metal from his pocket dimension. When he placed it on his wrist, the strip curled and fastened itself to him. There was a row of characters on the metal strip, which changed as every second passed. Needless to say, it was a watch. Ain's placed his fingertip on the metal strip, touching the displayed characters. The timer's set, Momongo Nyakin. An incredibly fake, cutesy, and high-pitched girl's voice echoed through the surroundings, and it was hard to resist the urge to knit his brows. Why can't I turn off the voice on this watch? Ain's grumbled, but he did not actually mean it. He could easily mute it with the use of creator tools, but Ain's had not done so. The person who had lent her voice to this watch was Bukabukagama, the guild member who had made Aura and Mare. If he turned off her voice, it would be the same as an ordinary watch. The reason why such a mainstream voice actress like herself would affect such a vexing tone was clearly because she wanted to tease Ain's. Shaltir Bloodfallen's creator Peroroncino was her brother. He got along very well with Ain's. Thus, Bukabukagama treated Ain's as her brother's friend, resulting in this. However, it might not have been a prank. She frequently voiced lowly characters in eroges, and the voices of those characters sounded like that strange voice from just now. Therefore, she might have just been using her working voice. When Peroroncino realized his sister was voice acting for a game he wanted to buy, his interest in it plummeted. Ain smiled bitterly as he recalled his comrades complaining. Well, it's true, if I heard Bukabukagama's voice while surfing the net, I'd be shocked too. As Ains expressed his thoughts to his absent friend, he continued pulling out several wooden sticks from his pocket dimension. They were about 15 centimeters long and flattened out, and each of them was inscribed with characters which read, Tsukiyomi, Hoyi's Bow, Earth Recover, Iron Fist of the Schoolmarm, and so on. There were several slots for scrolls on his belt. He quietly inserted the sticks into these slots, memorizing their position as he did so. These preparations took time, and when they were complete, the blue light of the magic circle intensified, indicating that the super tier spell was ready to be cast. Then, let's go. Having steeled his heart, a look of conviction filled Ain's eyes. Super tier spell fallen down. Clone. New paste. Few persons can be made to believe that it is not quite an easy thing to invent a method of secret writing which shall baffle investigation. Yet it may be roundly asserted that human ingenuity cannot concoct a cipher which human ingenuity cannot resolve. Edgar Allan Poe. 183,864 pastes opened. Based on an original idea from sebsavage.net. Sam and Max.